Hello, hello. Welcome to the Questionable Calls podcast. It's Sunday, about 7:30 Eastern Time. Just watched a full NFL Sunday, and Clark, I think that Selection Sunday for the college football playoff is going to become one of my favorite sports days of the year. I wish that it wasn't on an NFL Sunday where, there's so much college football stuff to consume, and then you got NFL games going on.
Yeah.
But this is exciting, Clark. First year of the 12 team playoff. Like I'm pumped. Like this is gonna be so much fun. There's so much more to talk about in college football that we don't get normally, or we haven't gotten in my lifetime. And times they are changing. So I mean, what do you think? What do you think about now we're gonna get some real games in December that actually matter?
Yeah. So we got 2 weeks off, and then we got
Yep.
games. Yeah. It's exciting because that was always a problem they had, where you'd have all this momentum, right, and then it would just be like, all right, now you got to wait a month,
Yeah.
and like they don't do that in really any other sport. I mean, like
No.
the NCAA basketball. I mean, I'm not that I'm a huge NCAA basketball fan, but they don't do that. It's basically like they have Selection Sunday, and then the next Thursday or Wednesday
Yeah.
they start having games.
It's actually Tuesday now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the NFL, it's like, all right, games are next week. Like when you go to the playoffs, or baseball, it's like, the season ends, and then the next day, like they're starting playoffs, or whatever it is. So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's just different because you have these days every year where they're putting out the rankings, so then it just adds more like intrigue and more stuff to talk about. So it makes college football unique.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, all right, so I'm gonna read off the rankings just so anybody who
Right.
doesn't know what's happening. So, all right, Oregon got the number one seed. They're undefeated. The only team that's undefeated, 13-0, beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. Georgia got the number two seed. They beat Texas in the SEC championship game. Third seed was Boise State, and this is where it gets a little. People are up in arms about the playoff format. The powers that be came together and decided this is what they wanted to do. But Boise State got the third seed. Arizona State got the fourth seed. Those four teams have a first round bye, so they don't play until
Boise State is what conference are they in?
the Mountain West.
That's right. Wow. So a non-Power Five conference, they got the 3 seed. All right, good for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So I'm actually fine with it. I know. I mean, we'll go over some format tweaks that they could make.
So
But
people are upset by that
oh,
now.
are you kidding me? It's a
Jesus
major
Christ.
sticking point. It is insane. Anyway, so those are the four teams with the bye, and then so we'll just go through the matchups. Texas got the 5 seed, and they're going to be playing Clemson, who's a 12 seed. So I mean, what we thought going into this year was that the 12 seed would be the Group of 5 team. But because Clemson was the fifth highest ranked conference champion, they got the 12 seed, even though they're ranked 16th in the rankings. So
I'll say this: like Texas is probably going to win that game, maybe going away, but that's an interesting. It's an interesting matchup.
absolutely,
It's not something you see. You get Texas playing an ACC team.
yep, yeah, it's gonna be fun. You get a home game in Austin, Texas. So that's gonna be really exciting. I mean, the matchup that I think is probably the best game is Tennessee is going to Ohio State.
Yeah.
So that I think is going to be awesome. I have some thoughts on Tennessee and Ohio State. I feel like those teams have been undervalued the whole season. I've been a big fan of theirs for a while. Let's see, the 6-11 is Penn State against SMU. Oh, and by the way, just to go back for a second, so Texas Clemson, the winner is going to play Arizona State. Tennessee Ohio State, the winner would play Oregon. SMU is going to Penn State, to State College, and the winner of that game will play Boise State, which that's another point of contention. People are all, well, Penn State got the easiest path, and that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. And then the 7-10 is Indiana going to Notre Dame. And the winner is the battle for the state of Indiana. Whoever wins that game will play Georgia. So yeah, I think this is gonna be so much fun. I can't wait to see these games. And we get 2 weeks, and we're gonna get home games in December in college football, which we've never gotten before. And so I think this is going to be it's going to be an adjustment for everybody, because they don't really. I know people like to act like these northern teams play cold weather games all the time. They really don't, unless it happens to be really cold in November that particular year. Most of the time, you don't get that many cold weather games. So this will be really interesting. So all right, Clark. First thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is that SMU got the 11 seed, where they were the last at large team in, the last team that didn't win a conference that got in, and because of the way the games went last night. So Clemson had a big lead. They were up 24-7 on SMU last night. SMU came roaring back and tied the game with like 18 seconds to go at 31-31. And then Clemson got a big kickoff return back to the 50. They completed one pass and they kicked a 55-yard field goal to win the game at the gun. So that kind of, made it got Clemson the automatic bid. And so if it had gone the other way, if SMU had won, then Alabama would have been in no matter what, because Clemson is ranked too low, to get in that large bid. So that became the discussion today. So SMU versus Alabama. SMU is 11-2. Alabama's 9-3. SMU has 2 more wins and 1 less loss. Alabama's strength of schedule is like 16th, and SMU's strength of schedule is like 60th. So it became that became a debate. Like, what do you, and then of course it turned into, nothing in sports can be without some kind of angle or I don't want to say politics, but some, I'd say, internal politics, right? Where it's, well, if you don't pick SMU, then you're not valuing conference championship games, and they're not going to play conference championship games anymore if teams are getting punished for whatever. And, the committee had said, we value teams getting to the conference championship game, and we're going to judge that accordingly. So, Clark, in my mind, the game, it came down to a razor thin margin. Because SMU lost that game by 3 last night, they got in. Alabama, yes, had a tougher schedule, but they also lost 3 times and looked bad in 2 of the losses. And, well, actually, if you want to be honest, they looked bad in all 3 losses. So, that's kind of what it came down to. Do I think Alabama's a better team than SMU? Absolutely. But I also think SMU was ranked 8th, Alabama was ranked 11th before the day started. So Alabama's always had a better resume than SMU. So if you were going to put Alabama ahead of SMU, you should have done it last week.
Well, now wait a minute.
That was my argument. But go ahead.
So I'm tomorrow, sure you have questions. Are we going to see people saying Alabama should have been ranked ahead of SMU?
We're going to have people saying Alabama should be in.
Nick Saban. Wait a minute. They spent the last week saying it was a travesty.
Listen, the arguments from week to week are all over the place. Like, don't get me started. First, Indiana wasn't ranked high enough, right? Then they're ranked too low, right? Then we moved on from Indiana after all the other teams lost. Then Alabama has no business being anywhere near the playoff because they lost to Oklahoma, right? And then, it turns into a mess. And then how is Miami ranked behind them? And, it turns into a whole disaster. But yeah, so people are going to complain that Alabama's a better team and they're 4th in FPI and all this nonsense. And then Nick Saban basically said on the show, like, look, if their strength of schedule was that bad, you should have ranked Alabama ahead of SMU last week. He's like, the fact that you didn't tells me that SMU should be in. He's like, because if that's how you feel about them last week, then nothing should have changed between last week and this week. SMU lost on a neutral site to a good team, a ranked team, right, by 3 points. So, yeah, it became, I think it would have been, I'll say this, it would have been more contentious had Alabama gotten in. I think that would have created more chaos. And no, I don't believe, like Paul Feinbaum was saying, well, the committee just did what was easy. Really? You mean like last year when they put Alabama in over Florida State? Was that easy? I love when people, they try to make these blanket statements about, well, this is what they do. Well, they did this because of this. It's like, no, they did this because, yes, they're valuing the conference championship game, and they don't believe you should be punished and kicked out, moved down 3 or 4 spots, because of this extra game that you played. The bottom line is SMU had to play one more game than Alabama did, against a good team, and they played well in that game. And Alabama Alabama's strength of schedule is better. I get that, but your strength of schedule doesn't matter if you don't win games. Georgia had a really tough strength of schedule. They went 11-2. They beat Texas twice. They beat Tennessee. They won the conference championship.
Yeah.
Like that's what it comes down to.
I guess my point is just these arguments that a lot of people make are completely disingenuous because it goes back and forth from week to week and there's no consistency whatsoever. So people then argue like, well, the committee's not consistent. It's like, well, you guys are inconsistent too. So what's,
Well, and my favorite argument from the past couple of days or the past week is, well, like Danny Kanell complaining that, well, Texas and Penn State still don't have any wins over ranked teams. Okay, that's fine if that's your argument. Okay, great. Then why do you want SMU in over Alabama? You want teams that you've beaten somebody in the top 25 and your strength of schedule is good. That's what you want, right? Well, SMU has none of those. So all I'm saying is you can't ask the committee to be inconsistent if you're completely inconsistent.
Well, I just, my thing is going to be is, tomorrow, is anybody going to take the time to go, this is pretty awesome. Look at these matchups. Look at what happened. This team wins and they go on to play this team. Like, that's actually pretty cool. They'll probably just be bitching and moaning about, different stuff. Like, well, why is this happening? And why is this happening? And then probably later in the week, they'll be like, oh yeah, this game's coming up. That should be fun. It's just going to be like,
well, Clark, last night, so Carson Beck for Georgia got hurt at halftime and went out of the game, right? That turned into a whole firestorm. Well, how can Georgia be in the playoff? Their quarterback got injured. It's all the Florida State people that are mad, and it's like, thank God Georgia won the game. Now, they would have been in even if they lost, so it's kind of it doesn't really matter because it's the 12.
It's not the same comparison.
It's not at all.
It was a 4-team playoff. It's a 12-team playoff now.
It's not at all the same. It's not even close to the same. It's not even in the same galaxy. But anyway, yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think. Look, I mean, Clark, did they get it right? I think they got it right. I think this is. Now, I hate being painted as a committee apologist, but I'm sorry. They do a really good job.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to break it to you. Like, people are upset that, and then it came out. Well, Penn State was ranked ahead of Ohio State, right? And Penn State lost to Ohio State in the regular season. But again, Penn State had to play an extra game, right? And last night, we already talked about the Clemson SMU game. So let's talk about the Penn State Oregon game. So Oregon comes out, dude, they're on fire. They score like 3 touchdowns the first 3 drives. It's 28-10. It looks like, oh, this is a disaster. Penn State hung in there, man. They hung in there. They had a couple of stops on defense. They ran the ball really well. They ran the ball for 300 yards on Oregon. They had over 500 yards of offense. So for Penn State, that's like a whole thing. And then it was 45-37, and Penn State had the ball with a chance to go down and tie the game. He threw the ball deep, and it got picked off. So Penn State played really well in that game, and everybody's like, "Oh, how are they ranked here?" Well, the reason is because SMU and Penn State both played really well, even though they lost. And Penn State played the number 1 team that was undefeated. And, scored a bunch of points on them. Right. So that was the other argument that came out. Well, how can Penn State be ranked ahead of Ohio State today? Because now they're both, they have the same, Penn State is 11-2, and Ohio State's 10-2. Well, right there, it's like, okay, they won one more game than them. But, so, they're like, well, how can they be ranked head to head, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not head to head because they don't have the same record. Okay. Penn State, 11 games, Ohio State only won 10. So it's like, yeah, head to head is when everything's even. Then you decide it by head to head. So I had zero issue with Penn State getting the 6 seed and Texas getting the 5 seed. Texas lost to Georgia in overtime. Okay. It wasn't like, oh my God, if either one of those games had been a destruction, then we could have had, a different discussion. But anyway, so, all right. So Clark, a lot of discussion the past few weeks, especially about the format of the playoff. And should the top 4 conference champions get the buys? Should you just, should you make the automatic bids where you get into the like the basketball tournament? Which, by the way, Clark, I don't understand why, they came up with the 12-team playoff, Clark. They have a perfect template with the basketball tournament to use, but they didn't bother with that. That was too easy for them. They had to try to make this complicated, and they made it. The format makes no sense, right? I think, everybody's saying that tonight. I think it's reasonable. I think it's a reasonable change to make. It's just the top 4 teams in the rankings get the buys, if you win the top 5 conference champions will get in, but you won't get an automatic bye. Right? You'll get ranked accordingly, and the top 4 teams get the bye. So I think that's a reasonable change. What do you think?
Wait a minute. So the top 4 teams, whatever they are, they get in.
The top 4 teams will get the first round byes, regardless of whether they win their conference or not.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd be fine with that. I mean, but then it's like, why do we have conference championship games? But I mean, I don't really care.
Well, yeah, I see your point. But why do we have them? I mean, it's an automatic entry into the dance. You don't have to get it. You don't have to get picked in the top 12. As long as you win your conference, you're in. So that's the advantage. That would be the advantage to that.
I don't know. I thought for years everybody was upset that more teams didn't get a chance, and now more teams get a chance, and everyone seems to be complaining. And
that's why I don't have I really don't have that big of a problem with it. I think auto bids are fine.
Yeah.
Like I just, my only issue was going to be how are people going to feel when a team that like there's an upset in the conference championship games. That really didn't happen this year. But
Clemson was out of it, and then they got in because
right there you go. So that's somewhat of an upset, yeah. So yeah, you that's going to happen sometimes. Are people comfortable with that? I'm fine with it.
Well, my thing is, I thought everybody loved all the Cinderella stuff that happens in the basketball tournament. So isn't this the same thing?
Yeah,
like exactly. You were out of it and you played your way into it.
Yeah, exactly. But people just have a hard time with like teams like Ohio State and Penn State and Texas who, they didn't win their conference, but they're definitely better than Boise State and Arizona State.
Such a lame argument. Well, you didn't win your conference.
Right.
Well, okay, what else? What did they do? Well, they didn't win their conference. I'm like, well, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I have zero issue with it, and I still think the matchups would be good, even if you ranked, it would make the first round a little less interesting because you'd have, more teams. But I don't know, who knows where these teams get ranked. I mean, Boise State, if they hadn't have played Oregon this year, and lost that one game, they probably would have been, top 6, because they would have been undefeated. So, yeah, I don't know if there's a perfect solution. I think, just tweaking that I think would be better. Let the committee seed rank the teams and use their rankings as your seeding. I don't have a problem with that as long as you keep I think auto bids are good. I think you should keep that in because I think we need yes, you want to get the best team, but you also need to be inclusive at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fair. All right, so let's do All right, so I'm going to give a general take here, and then we'll move on from that. So, Clark, I think I've been contending this for a while. There's 4 teams that are going to win this thing. Okay, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State. Period. That's who's going to win it. And I know everybody's not going to like that. Everybody's going to want to feed me all this nonsense. That's fine. One of them's going to win it. That being said, these are just like my general predictions for the tournament. Number 1, there will be an upset. Or this is my set. Yeah, number 2, there will be an upset. No doubt about it. Okay? There will be a TCU beating Michigan. Something like that is going to happen in one of these games. Guaranteed. That being said, it's not going to mean anything because the team that makes some kind of upset. Now, what I will say, Clark, is if the wrong team loses, like if there's like a major upset, it could do what happens in the basketball tournament where it opens up the bracket. Right? Georgia's quarterback's injured. Let's say Carson Beck can't play. Notre Dame or Indiana is going to play Georgia. What if, Georgia's like, not their normal selves and they get beat?
Right.
Then it'd be like, oh, wow. Then it would feel like, oh, geez, somebody's going to get an easier path. So something like that will probably happen. My third prediction, there will be a blowout in the first round and a blowout in the quarterfinals. At least one. Be prepared. Like it's going to happen. This is college football. Even though the point spreads are relatively low, like the highest point spread in the first round is Texas, I think is favored by 10 over Clemson. Everything else is like 7, 8, which is good for college football. If you watch the games every week, like 7 or 8 points is a pretty good deal. Let's see what else. Look, I'm sad that Ohio State's playing Tennessee because I really wanted them to play somebody else, to both go pretty far. But I would say Ohio State, Tennessee, and Penn State. Anybody sleeping on those teams? If you want to sell me your Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee stock, I will buy all of it. I've been on this since the beginning of the season. Everybody's like, oh, because Penn State can't beat Ohio State, everybody thinks Penn State sucks. And I'm sorry, that's just not true. It's just not. They played Oregon as well as anybody did this year last night. So, no, I know, oh, Penn State's not going to win. I just feel like Penn State's going to play SMU. I think Penn State wins that game. They're going to play Boise State after that. I think they're going to win that game. I think Penn State is going to be in the semifinals. So I guess that's my prediction. I think Penn State will be in the semifinals. Everybody will be like, oh, hey, Penn State's good, blah, blah, blah. It's like just because they couldn't make the 14 playoff, everybody thinks they suck.
Right. No.
So it's just ridiculous. I think Tennessee's very underrated. I think Tennessee's defense is as good as a lot of these other teams are. Their offense isn't like explosive as hell like it used to be. So everybody thinks, well, they're not as no. Tennessee's legit. Tennessee's going to give somebody a really, really hard time. And that's the scary part about that. And I'll go into the matchups here. The Ohio State Tennessee game, Clark, that's a scary game for Ohio State. Ohio State just played their worst game in a long time against Michigan last weekend, and they're going to play a home game. Like, Clark, this is like when we see in professional sports when like the New York Knicks or somebody like that, they start struggling in the first half, or Philadelphia, that's a better example. Philadelphia 76ers, they start struggling in the first half and the fans start booing. That's a danger to happen here. If Ohio State doesn't come out and play well and they start looking like they did against Michigan, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. And that's into my next point here. The pressure on Penn State and Ohio State is immense. Like, they have to win their first game. Ohio State, they're already screaming to fire the coach anyway. If they lose this game to Tennessee, it's going to be, I wouldn't want to be in Columbus. It's going to be a nightmare. And Penn State, James Franklin can't ever win a big game ever. They just get ripped for that every time. And that's what it's going to be if they don't beat SMU at home. So I find that interesting that we've got these situations where it's like you have to win or you're in trouble.
Right.
So anything else? Any comments on anything, Clark? Got any predictions, any thoughts, any game you're really looking forward to?
No, I think some of these will be pretty good. And so hopefully we get some quarterfinal games that are good, or these games that are good, and then some good quarterfinal games, and then hopefully one of the semifinal games is good. And then if we could get a really good national championship game, I would like it if we had, I don't know how this works in the bracket. If we get like Oregon, Ohio State, or Oregon and like Penn State, or Oregon and Tennessee, or Oregon and Georgia, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so Oregon's going to play the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State for the first game.
Okay. Yeah.
For their first game. So that should be fun. And then if they win that game, they'll be playing Texas, Clemson, winner will play Arizona State. So you could get Oregon, Tennessee, and then Oregon, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, then Oregon, Texas.
Right.
So that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think this year was pretty easy to figure out. I know everybody has people can get into the weeds on the seeding and all of that crap, but I really don't think that matters. And I think it's fun. I think Indiana going to Notre Dame is an interesting matchup. Notre Dame is the most program with the most history in college football, and Indiana's like the Cinderella team that's going to try to go win a difficult game, and I think it's going to be highly competitive. So I think it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I think we'll see what happens now, because the SEC is going to go apeshit that they only got 3 teams in. They're going to be angry at everybody, and we'll see what the commissioner says. But I will say this, Clark, on College Game Day yesterday, they had the commissioner of the SEC on, then they had the commissioner of the ACC on. So
Okay.
this isn't like last year where the SEC commissioner hijacked Game Day and then got to give all his takes and nobody else said anything. This was
Right.
Everybody was out for their side. And you had some really fun stuff on Twitter, Clark. Like the athletic director from Iowa State was taking shots at the athletic director from SMU. He was like, "Well, you didn't play. You're out of conference schedules week, and you didn't do whatever. Blah blah blah." And he said, "Get off my lawn." And then the SMU athletic director fired back and said, if it appears your lawn may be artificial. So, I mean, Clark, this is what I will say about this, Clark, and this is something I've kind of figured out recently. College football makes adults act like children.
Yeah.
Even adults who are like professional sports fans, they don't act like this. Especially people who are like have important jobs and make like six figures. Normally in professional sports, they don't act like this. Like no NFL GM is going to be like, man, I'll tell you what, the Cleveland Browns are a joke. No, nobody's doing that. But in
Right.
college, it's like totally okay for the athletic director to act like a complete moron, and the fans love it. So it's just hysterical to me. Yeah. So I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else on college football, but I'm super excited. 2 weeks from yesterday, we're gonna have 3 games on a Saturday. 3 playoff games on a Saturday, and like 3 out of the 4 games are going to be in cold weather climate. So hopefully we don't get some snowstorm that ruins it. I think cold weather football is okay as long as you don't get, the snow doesn't ruin it so nobody can score.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about the NFL today, Clark. So, well, actually, let's go back to Thursday because the Lions playing the Green Bay Packers, and Dan Campbell, Clark, he's got a little Brandon Staley in him.
Yep.
He really does.
He's got a little.
He just got to shake it up a little bit, So, I mean, everyone is kind of freaking out because the Lions had 4th and 1 inside Green Bay territory with like 43 seconds left. Okay. They go for it. They're like, of course they're going for it. They go for it. Jared Goff basically falls down, but he manages to get the ball to the running back. He gets the first down, which basically allows them to bleed the clock out and kick a field goal to win the game. And everybody's like, oh man, this is going to come back to bite them. You can't be this aggressive, and I think that, first of all, I think going forward on 4th down is a case by case basis, and every game is its own entity. You can't generalize and say this for everything. So people completely missed the boat on this. Okay. First of all, they made that 4th down. It's like, oh, well, what did they gain? Well, they won the game because of that play. That's not the same as going for 4th and 1 in your own territory in the second quarter. It's not.
Okay. They didn't get criticized for it, even at the time when it happened.
Exactly right.
Which is hilarious to me because Green Bay got the ball and literally went right in and scored a touchdown.
Yeah, so let me finish here. So didn't they do that the drive? Didn't they do it in the 4th quarter, Clark? Wasn't it the drive before that, or a couple of drives before that? I can't remember. Detroit had the ball in their own territory. It was around their own 30-yard line. 4th and 1. They don't get it. Now, at this point, Detroit has the lead, right? So they go for it in their own territory, don't get it. Green Bay scores a touchdown right away. Like, that's the 4th down we should be criticizing them for.
Right.
Like, I've been over this a million times. I have zero problem with a coach going for a 4th down at the end of the game to win it. Okay? What I have a problem with is going for 4th downs unnecessarily, like, especially when you're in your own territory. That makes absolutely no sense. Or not kicking a field goal when you're in the other team's territory. Like, because it's really hard to win and score in the NFL.
Yeah.
You need to take points wherever you can get them. So I just find it hysterical. The discussion on Friday was all about, oh my God, you can't be this aggressive and this won't win long term. And this is why I don't trust this team and all this nonsense that has nothing to do with it. No, Dan Campbell's problem is not going for it on 4th down when there's 43 seconds left. And if you make the play, you win the game. Like, what did they gain? Well, it's just like, I've heard this ridiculous argument on Friday the whole day. Well, what did you really gain by doing that? They won the game. Everybody's like, well, they just, they kept, they made 35 seconds. They took 35 seconds off the clock. It's like, no, they won the game with that play. You can't win the game in the 4th quarter earlier when the other team's just going to get the ball. So, yeah, I think this is, listen, do I worry about Dan Campbell going for it too much? Yes, I do. Of course I do. They lost the NFC Championship game partly because of his stupidity. And that's what it is. When it gets to this point, it's stupid. You're making it more difficult on your team to win. And again, if they make the 4th downs, everybody's fine. But to me, that's what I disagree with. I disagree with the process. Like, okay, they got the fourth down at the end. But my argument is they don't need that fourth down at the end, Clark, if they don't go for it earlier and just give Green Bay 7 points. So anyway, all right, go ahead. I'll let you have the floor. I know we agree on
Right.
this.
So, yeah, that's first of all, that's the one thing that I noticed the media always gets wrong about these, whether it's a fourth down call or whether it's a last shot in like an NBA game. Forget the result. That's not, no. The question is, was the process right? So with the fourth downs, it's like, okay, if you don't get it, what's the risk? And if you're going for it, the reward is you get it, you're going to win the game, but you don't get it. Well, that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But if you go for something where the risk is you're putting the other team in position to like score a touchdown really quickly or at least get 3 points, and the reward is, well, the drive continues. Like, what sense does that make? I mean, again, it depends on the time of the game and the score, but again, it's the process, not the result. You don't just go, it was the right call because it worked. No. Okay. And then the other thing is that, yeah, like, we were talking about this before, like the Lions screwed themselves last year. They went for it on fourth down too much. That's going to happen in the playoffs. I mean, somebody's going to go for it on fourth down when they shouldn't, maybe Nick Sirianni or something. And it's going to really cause a problem because you're essentially, again, like you said, you can't win the game in the second quarter, and I feel like I saw this happen a bunch today where it's just like, a field goal puts you behind by 1, or a field goal puts you up 1 point, or a field goal breaks a tie. If your kicker's really good, why don't you just kick the field goal? I mean, unless you really think your offense isn't going to be able to get down the field again, or you're really worried about the other team scoring more. But yeah, the only caveat, and I mean, we've talked about the fourth down thing a lot. I wish the media would talk more about it, and like maybe they're starting to, but I just feel like announcers during games, like, teams will go for it in their own end, and then people will be like, well, they're aggressive. So, and I'm like, no, like, you just gave the other team the ball. You're not going to criticize them. So the media still has to come a long way toward actually criticizing this to where it becomes a thing. They only criticize it now when something doesn't work.
Yeah, when did we get to the point, Clark, where consistency made sense over doing what's right?
Yeah, Kevin Wildes made that argument on First Things First, and I'm just like, dude, okay, to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, right? Like, I don't give a shit about consistency. I care about winning the game.
Right.
So if your idea is, well, we're just going to decide to be consistent, whatever the situation, well, that's wrong. Because you can't, every situation is different, and you got to judge it based on the time, the score, how you're playing, how your offense is playing, how your defense is playing, how's your kicker, like, is he making a lot of stuff, is he missing some stuff, like, all that factors into it. You can't just make this blanket statement with everything. That doesn't work. And then people will be like, well, if it works, everybody's like, okay, it's great. No, that's not it. No.
Well, and Dan Campbell gets ripped for his logic at the end of the game where he's like, look, I really thought we had to win the game on offense. By the way, he's right. Their defense is not good right now. They got 7 starters out. It's banged up to hell, and they had a chance to win the game right there. But instead we completely miss it, and we jump into, oh, this guy's reckless. And it's like, like, are you that's the fourth down call that was reckless? Like, are you serious? So I don't know. I think the football people in the media, they want to be smarter than everybody else. And so they jump all over Dan Campbell now about this. It's become a trope where it's just, that's what everybody does. They jump all over him for it instead of actually assessing the situation correctly. So nothing annoys me more than that. Anyway. All right.
Well, the other thing I'll say is that a caveat to this fourth down thing.
Yeah.
Is the kickers missing field goals, which seems to be an epidemic. I don't have numbers on this, but it just seems to be they're missing field goals, they're missing extra points. And so kicking a field goal now is almost like a coin flip. I mean, really.
Yeah, and in this case, Detroit went for it on fourth down to lead to a field goal, which was short. It was a short field goal, so I think the percentage play was absolutely right. But yeah, I think Dan Campbell was 100% right on this. He knew, Clark, Green Bay had the ball for 23 minutes. They scored 31 points. Detroit was not stopping them, which is another reason why it baffles me that they went for fourth down in their own fucking territory. It doesn't make any sense. At least I'm going to make them go the length of the field. Anyway, all right, so we'll move on from that. So Clark, today's Dolphins game felt like a loss, even though they won. Like they barely beat the Jets at home in overtime. Like, I know, I hate to be Debbie Downer, but I mean, am I supposed to be excited about this? Like, this Dolphins team that we knew, we called it, wasn't going to be good, and they're not. You know, hang on to beat this crappy Jets team, which, by the way, the Jets look like absolute garbage against everybody else. Aaron Rodgers has his best game of the season against the Dolphins. What does that tell you? You know, I know, I'm just so negative. I don't know what to tell you, but it's just like, oh my God.
Well, I mean, they can't run the ball really well. I mean, Tua, like I was telling you, I mean, Tua essentially has to do like a Michael Jackson impersonation in the backfield to try to fool the defense to try to run the ball. I mean, it's basically like, you know, he's spinning around, he's moonwalking or whatever. He's pretending to hand the ball off, then he's flipping the ball off the side. He's doing no-look passes or whatever. I mean, because they can't run the ball. I mean, Devon Achane had 14 carries for 24 yards. What is that, like 1.3 yards a carry? I mean, what?
Yeah, the Dolphins had 44 yards rushing on 19 attempts for 2.3 yards a carry.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, they can't run the ball. You know, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, like, they're not able to make huge plays anymore because of the way the defenses play against them. So, yeah, and it's basically like they have to methodically move the ball down the field. So everything feels like it's a struggle, you know. And Tua, you know, he had some throws that he could have made, which maybe they wouldn't have had to win the game in overtime. You know, still, he completed 33 passes. He had to throw the ball 47 times, which, again, that's not a recipe for long-term success. Yeah, and I mean, the Jets looked good, which they looked terrible all season long.
The Jets look good with Breece Hall out and Sauce Gardner out, you know. So that's the thing. It's a little disturbing the way they went down. I'm happy to beat the Jets. That's always fun to be able to beat the Jets, but goddamn, man. This team is such a travesty. I don't even know what to say anymore. Like the defense is not good. They ran off Vic Fangio like a bunch of morons. And you know what, Clark? I was thinking this today. Mike McDaniel, it's just the same thing as Brian Flores. It's just in reverse, right? Instead of the defensive side of the ball, it's the offensive side of the ball. He doesn't know how to hire a defensive coordinator. The first good defensive coordinator he hires last year is like, get me out of here. I can't work for this guy. Okay? He's going to be, you know, this is what's going to happen. We're going to be going through defensive guys, you know, and they're not going to be able to stop anybody good. And their offense is like, you know, remedial. You know, like they can only score against bad teams. That's it. That's all they can do. And we're going to act like they're playing well. And it's like, you know, so all they're doing is just screwing up their draft pick. They're just actively making the team worse, which is just a complete waste of time. And I don't want to have to endure another week of Dolphins fans trying to tell me, no, they're still in it. They got a chance. It's like, God,
they're more or less out of it. I mean,
a chance to do
they
what?
They would have to win out and go 10-7, and then, you know, the Ravens and the Broncos would have to lose, you know, a couple times, and even then, I don't know if they would get in. So yeah, they're, you know, again, they could still, you know, I think they may still manage to go 9-8, but that's not going to be enough to get in. So, you know,
yeah.
And even if they got in, what's going to happen? They're going to get their butts kicked by a better team.
Yeah, and the way
go ahead.
The way the AFC works, right? There's 7 teams that are over 500. Those are the 7 teams that are going to get in the playoffs. So I mean, if Denver wins next week, I mean, basically just cash it in. Anyway, so yeah, I could go on and on about that, but that's just like, God, it's just it's the whole thing watching the game. I'm like, it'd be better if they lose, but it's like, they've already screwed it up anyway and won too many games to begin with. So might as well just go ahead and win, especially when it's the Jets. But all right, Clark, I missed on the Falcons. I was like, you know what? I mean, it's not done yet, but I'm like, the Falcons are going to win 10 games. Like, they got a solid quarterback now. Their division's bad. Their schedule is pretty relatively simple. Like, they should be able to do this. Well, they're 6-7 now. And, you know, they're going to be Tampa Bay is 7-6. So they're struggling to get first place now. They're going to have to win out to get to 10 wins. And, you know, and by the way, I was never saying the Falcons were a great team. That was never what I was saying. I do not believe the Falcons are really good. I don't. I just think they're benefiting from their circumstances, and I thought they would benefit well enough to win. And after that really bad loss last week to the Chargers, after the Chargers had a terrible offensive game, but still won because the Falcons kept throwing them the ball, they lose today to Minnesota, and it's like, man, yeah, the Falcons just need, they're just short. The Falcons are just really short on talent. They need more guys on defense that can help them out. Their offensive lines, everybody thought it would be good. It's kind of overrated. So, yeah, I was wrong about that. I don't know where you were on the Falcons.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think this is kind of more or less what I thought would happen. Maybe the Falcons would have been a little bit better, but remember, they own the tiebreaker over the Bucks because they beat them both times.
Right.
So they're a game back. So I mean, they could get right back into it. But as far as them getting into the playoffs and doing anything, I don't think that's the case. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been throwing interceptions like crazy the last couple of weeks. Which, how much you want to bet? Colin Cowherd, when he does his NFL recap with John Middlecoff tonight, is going to say, they need to put Penix in there.
Right. Yeah.
They need to take a big swing.
Right. They got to put Penix in. It was such a smart draft pick, Clark. They got to, they're so intelligent.
Let's put Michael Penix in, and then we'll keep paying Kirk Cousins the rest of his $45 million salary this year, and then we can do the same thing next year.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the benefits of team building, Clark. That's how you build a team. You draft a fucking quarterback with the 8th pick when you have no defense. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I'm going to be right about that. And by the way, I want Penix to be good. Like I think it'd be great if he's good, but that's irrelevant to the discussion. But anyway, that's a whole other Falcons issue. The other thing I want to talk about: do we need to buy back some Bryce Young stock? I mean, my position was pretty. I had kind of gotten rid of all of it, and man, I may have sold too early.
Yeah, I mean, he can play.
Right.
That seems to be pretty clear. Because last year in the beginning of this year, it was like, this guy just looks like a complete bust. Like, he's too small. He can't run the offense. They can run the offense now. They're able to move the ball. He's, now granted, they got to start winning some games, but it's at least like, I think you can go, let's assume he plays this way the rest of the year and maybe they win a game or two. You can go into the offseason and be like, okay, let's address some of the team around him. And then let's see what he does, next season after the first, 3 months or something. Let's see if he's, because then you can kind of figure out, what is he actually going to be? Is this a guy we can really, really win games with? Or is he kind of a backup, or is he potentially an elite quarter? Because, like, he's running around and making some stuff happen that we didn't really see before. And so that leads me to believe that maybe the coaching he was getting last year was crap. Yep. Maybe the coaching he's getting this year is better. Maybe it benefited him to sit on the bench for a couple weeks and watch Andy Dalton, or just having Andy Dalton there. Because Andy Dalton, say whatever you want, he's been in the league for over a decade now. Okay.
Yep.
He made the playoffs a bunch of times with the Bengals. He's gone around the league. Whenever people ask him to come in there, he's a good starter. So clearly he knows how to play in the NFL. So maybe that was, again, the coaching plus watching him may have been a huge benefit to him. Maybe it wasn't so much the coaching. Maybe it was Andy Dalton. I don't know. But yeah, so that is pretty interesting. And I think it does go to show, like, same thing with Caleb Williams too. Like, if you get the right coaching around Caleb Williams, like, he'll be probably really good. But he's with the Bears, so who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought, from what I saw, I didn't see all the game today against Philadelphia and Carolina, but from what I saw, he was making plays. And he kept them in that game, and they had a chance to win. And if the receiver catches the ball, when Bryce Young makes a great throw down the seam and the guy just couldn't hold on to it, they probably win that game.
Yeah.
So, I just, wow, it went from, man, I don't know if this guy can do anything, to, like, he actually makes stuff happen. And I'm just like, man, comparing him to Tua, I'm like, okay, he can move a little bit. He can kind of make stuff happen outside, which he's going to have to be able to do when you're that size. You have to be able to make stuff happen outside the pocket, and he can do it. And he was making quick throws and quick decisions. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe this guy, this coach, Dave Canales, maybe he's coaching him better, and he's getting a lot more to work with, because last year was a disaster. Yeah. All right, Clark, any What other NFL takes did you want to? What else did you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think. So Sam Darnold, another
Okay.
really good game. The Vikings scored 42 points. And I think we talked about this before, but I mean, God, if you're Minnesota now, again, let's see what happens in the playoffs. But if you're Minnesota, are you really just gonna, well, we really like JJ McCarthy. We know he hasn't played, but maybe Kevin O'Connell feels like he's a really good coach and he can coach anybody up, which I'm starting to think that may be true. But yeah, that's it's going to be interesting. Now Minnesota's defense, I have some questions about because I don't necessarily think that they played really great. I just think Kirk Cousins kept throwing them the ball, so that probably makes it difficult for them to win one or two playoff games. But I mean, you can't deny Sam Darnold looks pretty good. And I do think the thing that's going to be really funny is if the Vikings end up moving on from him. I mean, he could end up going somewhere else and just being terrible because there's no really good landing spots anywhere. I mean, I
Right.
don't see any team where it's like, oh, they get him and then all of a sudden, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, unless like the Seahawks want to move on from Geno Smith or something. Where is he going to go that's like a really good situation? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the way he played, like he's probably going to get some kind of contract. So Minnesota's got some decisions to make. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, are they going to go, all right, well, we got JJ McCarthy, and we got Daniel Jones to be the backup. So do we move forward, or do we try to sign Sam Darnold for a few years and then see where we are with McCarthy later? Like, I'm sure if I'm the Finners and Sam Darnold's available, I want him.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
it sounds like from some of the reporting that they're already like, we're going to pay Brock Purdy, okay, you've made that decision already. Like, that seems a little ridiculous. But, I mean, yeah, because Sam Darnold was in San Francisco last year. So, yeah, I mean, again, I kind of like, it's nice because Sam Darnold's probably going to get the bag. Like, I don't think he's going to get $60 million a year, but he could get like a Kirk Cousins type contract from somebody. So, which good because he's kind of earned it at this point. But I just think the best place where he's going to have the most success is Minnesota. But we'll see.
yeah. The other thing is like, I found interesting today was like Seattle. Like Seattle played really well today. They beat Arizona. They've got a 1-game lead in their division over the Rams. I really like Seattle's talent. I just don't understand what goes on there that they can't. I know they have a first-year head coach, so there's probably a bit of a learning curve there. But man, I feel like Seattle just should be better than this. You know,
Well,
they're
maybe they
good, and
kind
I
of
just
maybe
feel
they
like they
figured
should
it
be.
out now. Maybe because they've won 4 in a row. Maybe they're kind of like this is they're coming into what they're going to be. But yeah, I mean they're kind of like they'll get assuming they win the division, which that's still in question. I mean, do they play the Rams again?
Seattle. Let's see. The last game of the season.
Okay, so
Last game
that
of the season to play the Rams, but before that, I mean, they have the Packers, Vikings, Bears, and then
oh
the
Jesus,
Rams.
Packers
So
and the Vikings. Man,
that's gonna be tough.
yeah,
All right, so Clark, Buffalo lost to the Rams. They kind of fell behind and tried to hang in there, but couldn't quite get it done. So we got to check in on your Chiefs hate for the week. I mean, the Chiefs are playing right now, so we don't know what the result's going to be. But how are you feeling now? So
I'm
Kansas
at a
City.
pretty low point. I'm like a 5. Now if they win the game by some bullshit tonight, like I'm gonna be furious. Okay, if you win the game, like the Chargers have the ball and they can't make it happen, or their offense just can't get it done, and the Chiefs win like 17-9 or something. Like okay, fine, whatever. It's a little bit annoying that we have to make them the favorite, even though they it's not like they play really well every week. But yeah, it's not too bad. Again, like I said, the thing that really pisses me off is when some BS happens. That's just like, come on. I mean, now the Raiders game that was on the Raiders, okay? Because essentially, I saw a video of it. One of the refs came in signaling false start, Another one from the other side of the field indicated a legal shift. I don't remember what the hand motion is for that one. So they talked it over, and then they realized it wasn't a legal shift. So there was no funny business going on there. Like, they got the call right. That's on the Raiders that you fucked up the snap. Okay. But it's just like, come on. And then they blocked the field goal against the Broncos. It's just like, it's just annoying. Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, if something weird happens, I'll be upset. But otherwise, it just kind of is what it is. And at this point, the Chiefs are going to get the 1 seed. And just please, for the love of God, somebody beat them in the playoffs. Okay, I want to watch somebody else in the Super Bowl. Like, the Chiefs can win it next year. Like, just come on, anybody. I don't care. The Steelers, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Broncos. Anybody. I don't care. Anybody else from the AFC. And then the NFC, I don't care. Just give me a good game that does not involve the damn Chiefs. Okay?
I'm glad you're not sensitive at all.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, no, I hear you. So no, it's so it doesn't make you worry more that Buffalo and Pittsburgh are 2 games behind. Well, if Kansas City wins tonight, they'll have a 2-game lead with 4 to play.
Yeah, they're going to get the 1 seed. It's kind of over. I mean, Buffalo, they fucked themselves by losing to Houston, which a game they probably shouldn't have lost. And yeah, the Chiefs have just look. I know people aren't going to like this, and the Chiefs look. I'll give them credit for being good in critical moments, but have they been lucky? Hell, yes. Okay, the Patriots got lucky plenty of times. Okay?
Well, and what I would say is, so Buffalo has Detroit next week in Detroit. So yeah, I would say that, and then after that they have Patriots, Jets, Patriots. So if Buffalo can win the game next week against Detroit, they'll have a shot at the 1 seed because all they have to do is be tied with the Chiefs. So they'll have
right. I still think the Chiefs will probably end up getting it. But to be honest, if they can just get the 2 seed, then it's basically like, look, they get 2 home playoff games, and then if the Chiefs make it to the AFC Championship game, and yes, I said if, okay, then they could play them there instead of having to play them in one of the first 2. Which, to be honest, I mean, yeah, that would probably be. That'd probably be better because you would hate to be the Bills and beat the Chiefs in the divisional round and then have to go to the AFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl.
You make a really good hater.
Yeah, and I'm practiced at it. I hated the Yankees and the Spurs for years. So, is it over the top and ridiculous? Yeah, a little bit, but
so are the Chiefs. We'll see. This is gonna be fascinating because down the stretch here, because the Chiefs are not playing. They're not playing great, but they still only they lost 1 game. So, but as you said, Clark, how are you playing a month from now? That's what matters. None of this other crap matters. How are you playing a month from now? That's the only thing that makes any difference. And in the NFL, week to week, you can lose to anybody. Buffalo went out to LA, played a tough game, didn't quite go their way, and they ended up losing. But they played.
Yeah, I mean, look, make plays in critical moments. If you have a really close field goal and you're tempted to go for it on 4th down, depending on the score, you may just want to kick the field goal. Okay? Just get the points that are there when you can get them. You better be able to rush the damn you better take advantage of the Chiefs' tackles. And, look, don't do what the Ravens did last year. Don't go in and get away from what you are because you're afraid of, the Chiefs. Just play like yourself, play really well. You could win the game. Like, the Chiefs are not. And yeah, that's the other thing, too. I want to point something out. I don't care that they've only lost 1 game. I don't care. They're beatable. Okay? And people are like, oh, well, people don't beat them. It's like, so what? That's not what I said. I said they're beatable. I didn't say I'm guaranteeing that these other teams are going to beat them. So.
Yeah, and, I mean, Clark, you make a very good point, and that's what I was texting you that when the Chiefs almost lost last week was like, this game doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. They're going to be in the playoffs against somebody. That's when it matters. It's like, and that's the thing, Clark. This is all right. I'm going to end with this, and this is not me being negative, people. I still think you should watch football. I enjoy sports, but the NFL is pulling this grift now. Okay, I'm going to say it's a grift because it is. That every week matters, and oh my God, you have to watch all these games. When the truth is, these games are like in one ear, out the other. They mean nothing. Like it's fun every week as a TV product, but it's not like, oh my God, these games have lasting implications. At least in college football, most of the games do have lasting implications. It doesn't completely ruin your season most of the time, but So yeah, I just think it's funny that we act like, oh my God, we got to watch the NFL on Black Friday. Like, yeah, whatever, dude. Kansas City winning that Raiders game means nothing, absolutely nothing. It's just so because football occupies a certain place in our culture, we make way too much about games that literally mean nothing. Most of the games today, especially the 1:00 window, were bad. Okay, the Saints and the Giants were bad. Yes, it was close. Congratulations, you both suck.
Oh, and by the way, just in case anybody wants to know, like, I'm serious about this. Okay, in the assuming the Chiefs get the 1 seed, they're not going to be playing in Wild Card Weekend. If they were playing on Wild Card Weekend, I would probably favor the Chiefs to win. But in the divisional round, the AFC Championship game, and God forbid the Super Bowl, I am picking against them. I don't care who they're playing. I'm going to pick whoever's playing against them. Okay, and people are going to be like, "Oh, but you can't bet against Mahomes." Fuck you. Yes, I can. And can I be wrong? Yes, I can be wrong. Okay, so whatever.
Just don't use your mortgage on it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that.
No, you can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. It's a free country, pal. Okay. This is Russia. This isn't Russia.
I know the last 2 Super Bowls, Clark. They beat San Francisco in overtime, and they beat the Eagles on a last-second field goal. So you're not wrong.
I mean, just as if at some point the luck will run out. Okay.
Yeah. Before we go, Clark, any recommendations? TV show recommendations? Anything? I'm only bringing that up because I selfishly have one.
There was a documentary on Amazon Prime about speedrunners.
Oh yeah, did you watch that recently?
Yeah, like on Friday.
Yeah, good, right?
Yeah.
It got a little too into, I mean, I think it's great that people go and have their personal journey and everything, but it got some of it got a little bit off the beaten path. But that guy, Mitch Flowerpower, that's who I watched. That's the Mario 3 guy that I watch a lot of his stuff, and he's one of the best. He used to be the world record holder in all the categories, but I think it's only 2 of them now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You can make a living from that, because back in the 80s and 90s, parents are like, why are you playing this all the time? You can't do anything with it, which at the time was basically true. You really couldn't do anything with it. But now with like esports and then with like what you can do on Twitch and stuff, you can make money from it.
Oh yeah, and like Summoning Salt makes money basically off of talking about speedrunning. He also speedruns, but he makes these videos like the history of this game or whatever, and he gets millions of views. It's freaking amazing. Yeah. So yeah, that was really good. Good pick there. On Peacock, it's a little. I might be a little late now, but they had a Black Friday sale on Peacock, $20 for a year. So I was like, fuck it. So I got it, and the show that I really like, based on a true story. So it's about these husband and wife, and it stars Kaylee Cuoco from Big Bang Theory. So her and her husband, she's like into these true crime podcasts and stuff, and so they actually they turn into like true crime podcasters, and it gets a little sketchy. They run into some people that they you wouldn't want to run into, and it's really, and it's kind of like it's like a dark comedy. So it's like, it's ridiculous stuff happens in it, but it's done in the name of comedy. So just like, I just get a kick out of it because it's just insane and ridiculous at the same time. So Peacock, based on a true story, check it out. All right, Clark.
Also, it's the holiday season. So, me, I tend to like to watch subversive holiday movies. So yesterday I was watching Bad Santa and Bad Santa 2. And then
Bad Santa.
I got to watch Die Hard at some point. And then this movie,
which is a Christmas movie, by the way.
Yes, damn right. And then this movie Fat Man, which I actually bought the digital copy of on Amazon Prime, where Mel Gibson plays Santa Claus, which I the last few years I watch every Christmas because it's it's ridiculous.
Well, we're gonna have to go over that, Clark. I mean, I guess we'll have the Festivus episode in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
We should rank holiday movies, like movies that we personally like to watch over the holidays.
Yeah, because the problem is there's like some that they've been sort of played out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't really like watching like Christmas Vacation. It's all right.
Yeah.
A Christmas Story. I don't know. I still like A Christmas Story.
I watch every Christmas day. I watch A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like it any other, you know, it's not a great movie and I don't like it any other time, but on that particular day, it's a nostalgic thing with me, I think.
I was watching Elf yesterday, you know.
Elf is in the rotation now. It's fantastic. I mean, for me, like I love Scrooged every holiday, the Bill Murray.
I've never actually seen that.
Man.
I gotta
Yeah, you
watch
got to
that.
see it. Bill Murray, Karen Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty, that's pretty good. Bill Murray just being a complete dick the entire time.
Is Ghostbusters 2 a Christmas movie? No, it's kind of a New Year's movie. I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
it ends in New Year's, but
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't consider that like a Christmas
no, it's
themed
not
thing.
really. I mean,
Anyway,
it
so
came
all
out in
right,
the
Clark. So
summer.
next weekend we'll just have NFL.
Yeah.
So yeah, college football we won't have until next two weeks from today. So yeah, we'll just be talking about what's left of. Got a handful of weeks left in the NFL, Clark. Holiday season coming up, college football playoff games, NFL playoff games. You know, this is the part of the year, Clark, where I start to get a little sad that football's leaving. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'd like to do other stuff too.
Yeah.
You know,
it gets a little bit ridiculous.
Like to have some, to do some stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was a blast. See everybody next time.